This Berlin complex right here was one of the last Nazi holdouts of World War II. In this building, many German deserters and alleged deserters were executed by the authorities. This here is the tragic story of the terrifying fate of the German deserters, World War II, in Berlin. Keep watching. In the last months of World War II in Europe, the downfall of the Third Reich was imminent, and most people knew it. For ordinary Germans, obeying out of fear was often the only logical choice. Even the smallest hint of resistance to the regime's insistence on fighting to the bitter end could cost someone their life. On the 3rd of April, SS Chief Heinrich Himmler ordered that any house where a white flag appeared, all male occupants were to be executed. The idea stemmed from a party proposal that even suggested burning down any house displaying a white flag. A few days later, on the 12th of April, the Wehrmacht High Command issued a new directive signed by Keitel, Himmler and Bormann, demanding that every town be defended to the last man. Any Allied promise of safety in return for surrender was to be ignored completely. Many became victims of the so-called flying courts-martial, mobile units dispensing instant death sentences. Their mission was to hunt down deserters. For the first time, German soldiers faced not only firing squads, but public hangings. These punishments had previously been used mainly against Jews and Slavs. Across the Wehrmacht, commanders were resorting to harsher measures as they struggled to prevent their armies from collapsing. One notorious example was General Ferdinand Schöner, who became known for his brutal tactics and fierce loyalty to Hitler. He was nicknamed Bloody Ferdinand and made sure countless of German soldiers whose loyalty was questioned would be put to death. On April 16, 1945, the Soviet army launched its final assault on Berlin. The German capital was encircled. To the north was the Second Belarusian Front under command of Marshal Rokossovsky. East of Berlin stood the First Belarusian Front under Marshal Zhukov, while the First Ukrainian Front under Marshal Konev sealed off the south. Instead of achieving a quick victory, it took several days and cost tens of thousands of lives on both sides before the German defenses at the Zilo Heights were broken. On April 21st, Soviet units entered Berlin from the east and fought their way toward the city center. The German defense consisted of a mix of SS troops, militia and regular soldiers, as well as Volkssturm units totaling about 90,000 men. In the district of Prenzlauer Berg is a large former industrial complex known today as the Kulturbrauerei. This brewery was founded in 1842 and has since expanded. In 1938, the complex became part of the German military industry. During the Second World War, forced laborers, mainly from the Soviet Union, worked here. During the Battle of Berlin, the staff of Befehlsabschnitts H, part of Festung Berlin, had their headquarters in a deep basement on this complex. The brewery was also the site of execution of German deserters and civilians in the last days of the war. This was not the only place where deserters and alleged deserters met their fate. It happened everywhere in the city. These executions were carried out by the Feldgendarmerie and SS groups. No records were kept of the roadside executions carried out, but anecdotal evidence suggests that the 11th SS Corps sector, mainly including a number of Hitler Youth, were hanged from trees on the flimsiest of proof. This was nothing short of murder. Soviet sources claim that 25,000 German soldiers and officers were summarily executed for cowardice in 1945. This figure is almost certainly too high, but it was unlikely to have been lower than 10,000. One German soldier who had surrendered to the Red Army told his Soviet interrogator that about 40,000 deserters were hiding in Berlin even before the Russian advance. Now this number is rapidly increasing. He claimed that the German police and the Gestapo could not control the situation. In various districts of Berlin, soldiers and sometimes even civilians who attempted to flee were publicly hanged from lampposts or trees. They were often forced to wear signs reading Ich bin ein Verräter, I am a traitor. The purpose was intimidation. Others had to see what would happen if they tried to escape. Eyewitness accounts, including civilian diaries, frequently mention bodies left hanging in streets or near bridges as warnings. At anti-tank barricades placed at key crossroads, the Feldgendarmerie checked identification papers, prepared to arrest and execute anyone suspected of desertion. Meanwhile, in basements, a steady flow of German officers and soldiers began appearing in civilian clothing. A woman writing in her diary on the morning of Monday, April 23rd, observed that desertion no longer seemed shameful as women tended not to value sacrifice. They were more practical and preferred their men alive. People nearby told her that a man accused of desertion had been executed at the far end of the tunnel. He had reportedly been hanged so that his feet barely cleared the ground, and some boys had cruelly entertained themselves by spinning his body around. How many deserters and alleged deserters were executed by the Nazi authorities in Berlin 1945 is hard to say because many records have been lost in the fog of war or executions were not recorded at all. It is safe to say that hundreds of Germans, and perhaps even 1,000, befell this fate in the Reich's capital. As the Battle of Berlin dragged on, the outnumbered defenders were unable to stop the nearly 1 million Soviet soldiers. In the early morning of April 29th, the German Ministry of Interior fell, and on April 30th, the Gestapo headquarters was captured. The Battle of the Reichstag that followed was one of the final engagements in Berlin. During the fighting, 2 soldiers raised the Soviet flag on the roof of the Reichstag. On April 30th, Hitler took his life. On May 2nd, the last 10,000 remaining German soldiers under the command of General Helmut Weitling surrendered. Yet, Nazi Germany had not yet fallen. A new Nazi government had taken office in Flensburg under Karl Dönitz. It is a bizarre story, and if you want to learn more on this, click here. Thanks for watching.